Jesus Christ, look at that. Hey! Hey! Get in! That way, it's a good 15, 20 feet tall. Easy. Get in, get in, get in!
Ready, come on! Come on! Det är alla provfrågor. Går det för dem där borta va? Kolla bilen där borta.
December 26th, 2004, a date etched in our memory. It was on this day an earthquake in the Indian Ocean caused a tsunami which killed over 230,000 people in 14 separate countries, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. 20 minutes after the earthquake, a tsunami slammed into the coast of Indonesia, killing over 160,000 people. 2 hours later, the tsunami reached the coasts of southwestern Thailand, where approximately 8,000 people lost their lives. Today, I'm talking with Trevor Fisher, who was at his local hospital in Phuket to help within an hour of the tsunami hitting. Trevor also featured in a documentary made by the BBC, which captured the aftermath of the tsunami in Phuket.
I'm missing a small boy.
From where?
From PPI. We saved 2 boys, so we feel privileged. I mean, we could have been wiped out the whole family. So.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. I'll bring you that picture.
please do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a tough call.
Trevor is a trained nurse from Manchester, England, who has lived in Thailand for 22 years. And this is his story. Trevor,
Hi.
thank you very much for doing this.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I'm glad that you agreed to my somewhat arsey stipulations about talking about the tsunami, but I see a lot of stuff about the tsunami. It's important to get this right, and I'm glad that you were okay with that. And I'm sorry if I came across as a bit kind of, you met me now, I'm not like that. It's just that this was a big event, and we need to make sure that if it's ever talked about, it's done so properly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want it to be, I don't want to embellish it or create a kind of a fake narrative. I want to just do it justice, because it's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah. Well, those people are the people who survived it, the people who were bereaved are alive, and they will usually watch anything related to the tsunami. And because I know them, I know that when people just present facts wrong because they want to do something about the tsunami, that bothers them. It adds to their memories, not in a good way. And so it's really important to get the facts right. A lot do, don't get me wrong, but some of the stuff that I've seen from backpacker tourists, oh, look at this amazing police boat, and it's like, do you not realise that the people who were bereaved will watch this? Maybe your words weigh a lot more, which is a phrase I learned during the event. I knew that from my nursing career. When you deliver bad news to people, a bad diagnosis, or when there's nothing more that can be done. I worked in palliative care, so I've been present when that news was delivered, and I understood the weight of my words then. It's not the same weight as a casual conversation.
So let's talk about the 26th of December 2004.
Right.
I'm sure that date is etched into your memory forever. A lot of people said that they felt the earthquake in the morning around 9 a.m. Did you feel any earthquake?
I didn't. No. I was driving into the Laguna area, which is some very high-end hotels. I was going to Mass, actually, because the Catholic Church, there wasn't a Catholic church in that end of the island. So I was driving towards it, going past the lagoons that are there before the hotel, before you get to these hotels. And I saw beach furniture being washed up above a sand dune and landing in a lagoon. And I thought, what the, you know. And then loads of people in uniform, in beach wear, all the staff from the hotel came running up the road, and they're all telling me, turn the car around, go, go, go. You know, and I'm like, oh gee, what's happened, you know? No idea. I mean, imagine you're seeing that. We all know now a tsunami happened. But imagine driving your car down this sun-dappled road. I was listening to The Cure, you know, and then all of a sudden, over the sand dune to your left, all the beach furniture arrives over the top, like it's being pushed by a bulldozer. And then you see people running away. So I'll never forget, one of the guys, I'd wound my window down, one of the guys, hotel staff, was still calling me sir, which is how, you know, how trained, whatever, you know, he's saying, please sir, turn around, it's dangerous. So no idea what happened. So as I'm driving back, I picked up my phone and I rang my friend Rona, who lives closer to the beach than I did. And Rona said that her husband, Michael, was out on his bike. He was in this kind of mad training thing for a TV reality show. And he called her and said he felt an earthquake. So he knew, but Rona was then really worried because she'd not heard from him since. And it, you know, it was starting to dawn on everybody that something quite big had happened. So yeah, I didn't feel it, but you know, I saw, that was the closest I came to it. I was never in any danger, would never say I was.
And when you turned around, where did you go?
To my house, which is just like 5 minutes further inland. I went to the house, I turned on the TV to see what was on the news. Thai TV news just started to say something, so I said to my then girlfriend, I said, Lisa, what's going on? You know, and she said, they say there's a big wave, it's very dangerous. I said, okay, everybody in the car, because Mum was staying with us and Louis, my son, was with me. He was only like 3 at the time, I think. And so we piled him into the car, and then I can't remember whether I'd heard it on the radio or whether Lisa said it, but tsunami. Now, we'd had a tsunami alert about 10 years before that. Didn't happen. It was a false alarm. The thing I knew about the tsunami from the previous warning was to go up to Khao Lak, which is the biggest kind of high point in Phuket. It's a hill in the middle of town. So I drove them all there, and there's a great restaurant at the top there, so I dumped them there. There was a lot of people already heading there, so a lot of people had remembered that was where you should go in a crisis. So I dropped them off there, and they were fine, you know, gave them enough money to eat and whatever. At the bottom of that hill on the other side is Phuket International Hospital. And I thought, well, they're going to be busy. And a friend of mine was the administrator there, Peter. I rang Peter, couldn't get through. And I thought, yeah, well, obviously why I can't get through. So I drove there and pulled into the car park, and people had just started arriving. They were arriving on tuk-tuks, cars.
What kind of injuries were you seeing?
So the first injuries I saw were lots of cuts, and especially to the lower legs, and this is caused by the debris. As it's not the water itself, that the water itself is dangerous, but it's what it picks up, and what it picks up is cars and motorbikes and glass from the windows it's smashed, and fridges and televisions, and those slam into people. So the first injuries that I remember seeing were people with badly cut legs from, you know, just above the knee downwards, which is, they were further away from the beach. There was a definite change in the casualties that I saw after about another 20 minutes. These were crush injuries, compound fractures, a couple of dead people. Yeah, and that was way more severe, and I think that's from the second wave, because the second wave picked up, had all of that detritus in it, and came back inland.
Was the second wave much more powerful than the first wave?
I don't believe so, but I think it had a force multiplier in all of the debris that it had picked up and came back in with. You know, it had gone out with the stuff that it had smashed up on land and then came rushing back in with all that stuff as a part of it. I know people who were caught up in that wave. The most common description I heard of people who were actually in the wave, washed out, you know, mainly in Khao Lak, was like it was being in a washing machine but full of metal objects. That's what caused a lot of the damage. Those drownings, of course, you know, people helplessly unable to get out of the water, get out of the wave to breathe, so they drowned. Most of the damage was actually the debris that it collects. And it's, you know, even when I see tsunami, the word used, this picture of it, even though people know what they look like now, they show this great crested kind of wave crashing. It doesn't look like that. It's a surge of a wall of water that you can't stop. It's just surging towards you, and it's a solid wall of water. And if you're not able to get higher than it immediately, it's going to get you, and it's going to carry you as far as it can go inland.
In Phuket, I think Patong especially was hit hard. Did the water go all the way up Bangla Road?
It did, yeah. To the top of Bangla Road. It was, by the time we got to the top of Bangla Road, I would say it was past your ankles. But at the beginning of Bangla Road to about halfway, it was waist high. And if you look at the other soys down the side of it, I got a friend who had a hotel with a swimming pool that would be on a parallel road to Bangla, but halfway down. His swimming pool swamped. His ground floor rooms are swamped. So, you know, the power of it was also condensed in some areas. You know, if he couldn't knock down a building, it gets concentrated. So the narrower streets in Patong got really smashed up, and it was deeper, further in the narrower areas, because all the same amount of water still trying to get where it wants to go before it runs out of steam.
So you volunteered at Phuket International Hospital and you helped reunite families. One family.
We had one result.
I think I have a passage. Was it an older Scandinavian couple?
No, that's they found each other. We didn't do anything to help them, but they found each other in the hospital where I was.
Okay, well, I'm just going to read that passage because I thought that was really powerful.
Is this from something I wrote, or?
It's your quote.
Oh.
It says, an older Scandinavian couple walked with their arms outstretched as if sleepwalking across the room towards each other. Red-faced, with tears streaming down their cheeks, They passed everyone as though they weren't there, shouting each other's names until they could finally touch each other. The man held his wife's face in his hands and his whole body quaked. She kissed his forehead and said his name again and again and again. Gunnar, Gunnar, my Gunnar. And he said hers, Elsa, Elsa, Elsa. That was very powerful.
It was an amazing moment. And the noise, I don't mean this to sound bad, there's a noise that we make as humans that you don't hear often. It's an animal, guttural noise. The sobs that they had came from a depth that hopefully most of us will never know. We'll never find the depth that those howls and tears come from. It really was a profound moment. But it was they reunited, but not based on any efforts that we did. They on their own efforts had found each other, assuming that each other was dead. You know, they'd spent however many hours, I think this was the same day, it might have been the next day, living with the assumption that the person they loved was dead. That's a profound meeting, yeah.
How about the family that you did reunite?
Okay, on the second day, I was there about 6 a.m. and there was a kid, blonde kid, about 3 or 4 years old, sat on a table next to the Christmas tree. And the Thai staff had written a note, and it said, no name, no country, about 3. So this was a child, turned out from Sweden, I believe. So, right, what do we do? How do we get this news out that we've got an unaccompanied kid with us, and he was badly mosquito bitten, and we treated that. So on the same hill is the Phuket Gazette newspaper, and I'd written for them and knew a lot of the people that worked there. So I rang Chris up, Chris Husted. I said, Chris, I've got this kid here, unaccompanied. Someone's looking for him. We need to use the Gazette, he said, I'll be there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And he was, he scooted up the hill, took a picture of the kid, and then went back to the office, got back, because everyone's going to the Phuket Gazette for news. The local news sources are way faster than international news sources, because they're there. The international news is a good few hours and usually a day behind what's happening on the ground in any story whatsoever, right? So Chris put this kid's picture on the front page and blasted it out. Within an hour the phone had rang. His mother was sadly dead. His father was still alive and in a hospital in Khao Lak. They had relatives flying in, but the child's grandmother was, I think, on the other side of Phuket, on the mainland, like, I want to say Pangar, not with them, and she was heading in. So the father was brought to us later that day. The father was brought to us. The grandmother arrived. We tried to make that reunion private, which is almost impossible due to one particularly insistent journalist from CNN who lied to me and said, yeah, I'll respect them, blah, 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 blah. And the moment that he found out the room where we were putting these people together for this very profoundly private and moving moment, he was elbowing people out of the way to get in there, which was, you see the best and worst of people, mainly the best, in moments like this, So that was the one reunion that we had. But it came back to haunt us. The couple that I met on the first day, who I was the closest to, or might have been the second day, were the parents of Ragnar, who was a 3-year-old, blonde-haired, Scandinavian child. And eventually we found out, was dead, was missing, was gone, but we didn't know that then. And his parents, Anders and Lise, over at my place, trying to do everything that they could to find him. Following every lead, every rumour. But of course, this story about the kid who'd already been found, who was already looking, people were then sending emails and messages saying, oh, did you know there's this kid at this hospital? Well, that was the hospital where they were, and they knew that wasn't their kid. But this went on for, in the week following, it was a lot of rumours happen, part of our job. Within the second day, it became apparent that our mission, at our place at least, was to be a clearinghouse of information and rumour to find out facts.
So Trevor, can you give us more detail on the process that you were involved in that reunited families in Phuket?
The first day we didn't know what we needed. The second day, people started to turn up en masse, particularly from Khao Lak and the outlying areas, who were coming to us because they'd heard from other people who'd been to us that we could help them. Unfortunately, the Swedes were unlucky in that they just had the wrong sort of ambassador. Some of the countries had great ambassadors for a crisis. Some didn't, theirs wasn't, and that particular population weren't happy with what they were getting, so they were looking elsewhere. And what we quickly identified was that their immediate need was information, and how they were going to get information about the search for their missing person. And quite a few of them turned up with photographs. And so it just became increasingly evident to me that that's what we should be doing, is facilitating what they need rather than trying to work out what we can do to impose on them as a way to help. And what I was learning as the hours went by was that what they wanted or what they needed was support in looking for their missing relative. So I rang up a friend who I'd previously worked for, Blair Spears, had a company called Hotel Travel, and said to Blair, I need a bunch of techs and some computers and a fast internet connection. Fast for them days, you know. And he said, sure, I'm on it. Within an hour, a team of 8 techs turned up and set up this whole area with computers and printers and sorted out a internet connection. And then people started arriving. People started to turn up, people who live on the island, to say, okay, what do you need? What can we do? There was this line that happened over the days where I used to say, I don't know what I want you to do yet, and it probably won't be very interesting, but hang around if you want to help. And everybody that did that, I found something important for them to do. No, not glamorous, not interesting, but it was necessary, because what we ended up doing was we asked some of them to form a team in PP, some of them to form a team in Pankar, some of them to form a team in Khao Lak, so the areas on the mainland that were badly hit, so that when people came to us, we could manufacture the missing poster with their contact details, and then we could fire those up to, we could fire 500 up to Khao Lak, and we had people there in Khao Lak on the scene to put those up where people were putting up their missing posters, and then take a photo of those in situ in Khao Lak and send them to me, so that I could show that family, we've done it. You don't need now to start driving between Pangar and PP, and you don't need to do that anymore. Your missing posters are in the place that you want them to be, and I've got a team there that the moment you hear a rumour, because rumours are everywhere, I've got a team there that will chase it down. So within an hour of having the team at PP, we heard that we had this description of a girl who was missing, and they'd found a female body that kind of looked about the same as the description that they were getting, and that family were with me. And I said, okay, I said, exactly how tall is she? And they knew to the centimetre. I mean, you do with kids, right? Because of various things to do with school and blah, 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 So I had somebody there who could measure that child's body, and it wasn't her. And we knew definitely it wasn't her. To take a picture and say, is that her, would be very distressing, with some of the bodies after a day being disfigured, blackened, whatever. And so we found ways, and I think out of all the things that we did, this was the thing that initially you're there to provide hope, because you don't know whether that person's dead or not. And so in the first few days, hope is the currency. It's what you're there to spend. It's what you're there to give. And the way that we were able to maintain that hope was to provide resources so that they didn't have to do all of those things and take up all of that time, and reassure them that it had been done as well as they would do it themselves had they gone all that way, even though they were injured. They were wanting to do that. But also what we were able to do, and perhaps more importantly, was that as the days went by, the rumours became more unusual and weird. Oh, there were 8 Scandinavian-looking children who were being kept in a monastery up a mountain in Khao Lak. Not true. So not true. But we were able to send people up that mountain to that monastery and show people it's not true. Because when your child is missing, or when your parent or partner is missing, every bit of information is gold. You want to find that out, and And so, okay, it didn't give them what they were hoping. Yes, there are 8 Scandinavian children up a monastery. Nowhere. But at least they were able to take another bite from the truth that was coming towards them like a train. You know, that as each day went by, it was more and more likely that their loved one didn't survive.
So the wave hit the whole coast.
Yeah, all one coast.
So were there like small little towns and stuff like that that like were damaged as well? Because we always hear about Khao Lak and we hear about Phuket, but if it hit the whole coast, then...
Well, one of the few expats in Phuket to die was Leonie Cousins, who was a much loved person on the island. It's actually not a great big expat community. It's thousands, but it's a small place, so we all know each other. She did a lot of work with animals and so on. And Leonie had a beach house, one of the few, you know, and a place that's actually known as Cousins Cove was then as well. And she had a house guest staying there, so she went to warn them, and they'd already gone, and she was killed.
God.
Yeah, just pure, you know, roll of the dice. We lost Leonie. So I really don't know much about what happened on the coast because I was at the hospital.
Khao Lak was hit especially hard.
More so than Phuket. Phuket
Yeah.
lost about 600 people. Khao Lak was about 6,000.
6,000.
Well, it's flat. See, Phuket, it's got this kind of hill range. You can't call them mountains, you know, but it's got these hills in the middle of it. Khao Lak's flat for about 4 or 5 kilometres. It's at sea level almost, you know, and it's flat. That's why the Navy boat that everyone's seen ended up like 2 kilometres inland, because the whole area is flat. The beach is flat. So there's nothing to stop the wave, and it's not very built up. It's a family kind of resort town. There's no huge buildings. There's no gigantic hotels. There are, but they're kind of scattered around, you know. The thing that happened there was horrific, you know, because the wave just came in and came in and came in and came in. Had nothing to stop it.
In the documentary that I saw, you mentioned your friend Ian, and he went to Khao Lak.
Right, yeah.
And you said that Ian bagged 40 bodies in 3 hours.
There are a few things that played on my mind afterwards. I asked people to do things that probably would affect them for the rest of their life. I didn't know. Ian came to me and he said, "What do you need?" I said, "I need a team to go up to Khao Lak." Ian called me about halfway there. He was on the mainland. Not, you know, he'd left Phuket over the bridge. He was on the mainland to an area that wasn't a tourist area, but on the way to Khao Lak, and he'd seen bodies on the beaches, just washing in. And so he stopped and he called me and he said, "Look, Trevor, I've got to help these people. I can't." I said, "It's okay. We got a team. You know, we've already got people there." He said, "All right, I'll see you later." And he spent the day, maybe the next day, bagging bodies up, putting them in the back of his truck and taking them to where the bodies were being collected. Horrific. For me as a nurse, right, or for example, someone with military experience, or a paramedic, an ambulance driver, we've seen death. We've seen horrific death. We've seen car accidents and burn victims. And he's a businessman. There's no need to subject himself to that. But he did. You know, another guy is a diver. He's got a nice, lovely house, lovely life. Pretty much retired, I think. Young, you know, so obviously done all right for himself. Put on his dive gear, went to the Sofitel in Khao Lak, which has an underground car park full of bodies, and spent a week there. They even invented a way to get the bodies out without the bodies falling apart. Because a body, when it's soaked in water, you know, especially salt water, the skin becomes brittle, you know, starts to flake off, and the body itself becomes very bloated. It's very hard to move it without, you know, breaking the skin, in which case everything else breaks. And horrific. Imagine, and you're underwater, you know, trying to get these bodies out. and as intact as you can make them. You know, he spent 2 or 3 days doing that. Didn't have to. Didn't do it because I asked him. I felt responsible for Ian because I did kind of send him. And I met him that night. His sister owned a pub. She said, Ian wants to see you. You know, he's kind of seen some things today, and we just hugged. We weren't particularly close. We weren't mates. You know, we just hugged. And I couldn't thank him enough. But this is the story of the tsunami that doesn't get told so often. Is, you know, like I said, it's lots of small things that add up to a solution to something so profoundly big. And those are the things. Those that don't ever think that you can't do anything in those situations. I was lucky. I'm a nurse. I got the skills. I speak 4 languages, including the local language. Very, very valuable at a moment like that. Okay? And my experience. I'm used to dealing with sudden traumatic death. It'd be wrong of me to not put them where they were needed. But everybody helped. I mean, the guy who ran the second-hand shop turned up with his pickup truck, but it's a really big pickup truck, so useful. Frank, you know, I say, Frank, can you do this? Yeah, I'm on my way. You know, not glamorous, not interesting work, nothing heroic. But these are the things that solve big things. This is what you need to know, is that when we're in the shit, we can be magnificent, beautiful beasts. Nothing like us. We help. And the fraction that don't, fine. Don't take them as typical of mankind. Because when we're in the shit, we are amazing. And I saw amazing that week. I saw the worst of us as well, don't get me wrong. But I don't want to dwell on those because they was in single digits. The best of us were everybody. We're all the best of us when we need to be. There's no way to recreate that in everyday life, and I don't know whether we can be amazing every day. But take it from me, when the shit hits the fan, most people are brilliant.
Say a couple of months after the tsunami, even up to a year or 2 after, how are you feeling at that time? Because I mean, it must have been. I mean, I'm just trying to empathise, and I could, if it was me, I don't think how would I get over that? I don't know.
There is a vocabulary about death that people who work where death is part of the job, you have that vocabulary to be able to speak to people properly about death, and honestly, as well as compassionately. But you can also have that internal conversation with yourself. That vocabulary that helps other people that you're there to help helps you in the conversations you have with yourself about it. It's nursing stuff. It's what nurses, coppers have it, police have it. I've been with coppers when they deliver bad news about a sudden traumatic death due to an accident. It's a heavy gig, and they expose themselves to it, but they develop a vocabulary. They're not cliches. There aren't things that always work that you say. None of that. It's always unique. But there is a comfort you have in saying certain words, which relatives and friends won't say because nobody's comfortable with talking about death. And the people I have the best conversations with about it, I met a lot of like special forces guys, a lot of military who would come to Phuket on R&R. I have some seriously deep conversations about their experiences and the similarities of what happens in that mass casualty event, the things that you see, the feelings that you have. I gave a eulogy at the church, at the hospital, sorry, when they were closing down the services there. And they reprinted my eulogy because it was kind of about that. It was about hope, and it was about being able to talk about death and also embracing a future without that person that was missing or gone or dead, confirmed. If you want a copy of that eulogy, I still have it. I think it's worth people reading, or it's worth hearing.
I'll put it in the description of the video.
Yeah, it's worth a read because I've used it several times since to help people, and most people I've given it to have found it of benefit. Yeah.
Well, Trevor, it's been a really, I don't know how to describe it, it's been quite emotional.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the story.
Thanks for letting me tell it in the way that I wanted to, because, like I said, I didn't want to populate the narrative of somebody else's story, you know.
Oh, absolutely, I appreciate you taking the time to tell it.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.